Hi, good afternoon. I did a video this morning. I did a video now, this afternoon. Uh, and I'd like to start out by talking about, I'm going to be talking about pronouns today. So, in our modern day, we're really, we're really stuck with pronouns, aren't we? It used to be she, he, and it. Now we got we, they. I don't know, every day it seems like we're getting a new pronoun to refer to ourselves that's inclusive instead of exclusive. And it's okay with me. But I try not, see, listen to every time I say it's like I hear it through a giant megaphone. I. And I try to eliminate this pronoun, this particular pronoun, is one that I prefer not to use or overuse, but I always do. And it's part habit and part that's the language that we're left to deal with. And one of the interesting things is that I started using the little I, like I used the little m on the mind, this small m on the mind, and the capital mind for the mind. Okay, and the monkey mind is a small m, and the I that I used to preface the I that I've used 15 times since I began this 1 minute and 45-second video is always the small I. And try as I may, I haven't been able to eliminate this. I don't know what's an alternative, so I'm going to keep using it until it comes to me that there's an easier way, a more correct way to talk about it, to talk about things. Particularly when the little I is so identified with the ego. Ego should be IGO instead of EGO, if I was really honest with you. I go instead of ego. Yeah. But that small I is representative of everything that I've grown to find false, illusion or maya. The I that of that the I of the ego, the I that I see this, I think this, I believe that, I know them, I don't know that, all these I's. And once you find that there is no separation and division, that we're all one, the unification, the synergy, the synchronicity of the universe is inclusive, besides being overwhelming, to say the least. So I mentioned before that I had some background because my mom's library was the Western metaphysics, they called it. Western spirituality, and they always talked about, certain people. Edgar Cayce was the person, he's a kind of a psychic, he could give life readings and read your past lives, and he was one of her favorites. And then there was like Annie Besant and Madame Blavatsky before her, a Russian, and then they talk about Lord Maitreya, and there's the archangels, and there's today's metaphysics, Western metaphysics, is alive and well. There's a lot about angels and twin souls, and anyway, it's all good. It's just another way. I'm just heavily steeped in the Asian tradition, and I think that probably my last lifetime, as I remember, was in the Himalayas, in a cave, somewhere in China, Tibet, Nepal. And I suspect that was 400 or 500 years ago. I haven't been incarnated on Earth for 400 or 100 years. And it's just fun, okay? Believe it or not. But I've been to other realms and other places that seem much more familiar. And I think that's what I use to account for the fact that I've always felt like an outsider here within the confines of the earth. While I appreciate Earth's beauty and all that she provides, I just feel like spent a lot of years from somewhere else. But one of the things, and there's, one of the places that I found that Eastern take, especially in the Advaita, the Hindu tradition, they would say, some of the adepts, some of the masters would say, I am that I am. And that was the be-all and end-all of who are you? I am that I am. Which simply sounds to me, it means I'm here and I exist. And that's all there is. This I, this big I, is inclusive of everything. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this because it does have some history. I am. And in some traditions, just simply repeating, I am, I am, I am. It's sort of like in Sanskrit, Om, Om, O-M, which is supposed to be the synthesis of all sounds that were possibly made by human beings, thus becoming the most sacred sound. And I think this I am that the theologists, the New Agers, the metaphysicians of Western spirituality, this I am is this Om. It's inclusive. It's the sound of the universe. Om is the sound of the universe, the song of the universe. If I close my eyes right now, I can hear. It makes me think of that Simon and Garfunkel song, Sounds of Silence. Yes. I found for myself that the opposite of sound is not the absence of sound. It's not quiet. The opposite of sound. And now you know what? It just vanished. I had it. I'll come back to it. The opposite of sound. Because I thought, the opposite of sound I know is stillness. Not quiet. I always thought silencing the mind meant to stop the mind from working. Instead, it's to allow the mind to go into this higher state that now I've come to know as stillness. And for so many years, I sought to quiet the monkey mind, the noisy monkey mind, and I learned to relegate it to entertainment purposes, to watch it, to never take it seriously. Certainly never look into it for any kind of guidance or any kind of solution to anything in life. The little mind is it's just going to make a racket. And it's just basically a tool of protection for the ego that you need to discard anyway. So I get to discard the ego, but somehow the monkey mind stayed. And my goal in Zen, when I first entered Zen at the age of 33, was to basically, essentially, my understanding was to conquer the mind, to quiet, to still, and to silence the mind. And from this would come clarity. And I've come to learn two mistakes in these two things. Number one, what I thought was clarity was clear thinking. And clarity is much more than clear thinking. Clarity is about purpose. To be clear of what your purpose is. And of course, we all show a common purpose. We should. Eventually, we'll all get to there. Is where that we want to answer the big questions. Where am I? Who am I? Why am I? And shut up the questions. Stop the questions and just accept the purpose, that your life's purpose is to remember the forgotten, is to escape dualism, is to kill the ego, sacrifice the ego, which is not always a tranquil experience, to say the least. It can be quite traumatic. In my case, it really wasn't, because I never took myself seriously, and I never really bought into this sense of ego, because I always felt, my spirit guide is number one, I always felt that there was more. But I knew my purpose was always clear. So it's funny, after I abandoned Zen, because after I gave up on trying to shut my mind down, which I thought, and it's like light switch, turn off your mind, and then you get clarity. So, and I wanted to see things clearly. Well, first of all, I discovered after I surrendered and gave up, and then the enlightenment process began after giving up, is the same thing happened to the historical Buddha, Gautama, Siddhartha, Akimuni, is that when he gave up, is that when he sat quietly in perfect meditation for 40 days and the awakening process transpired. Okay, so clarity, and what's the other thing one of them said? There was another thing. I just said it. I'm having a hard time today. It'll come to me in just a second. But I found out that, the quieting. I talked about clarity being clarity of purpose, not clarity of vision, clarity of seeing. I always pictured seeing in the pool and the cloudy water had disappeared and I could see to the bottom. And I meant in terms of seeing life clearly. And I understand life, but I certainly don't see it clearly. And the other thing was misunderstanding what shutting up the mind was. Misunderstanding silence. Silence is not the absence of sound. It's much more than that. It's stillness. You enter a new state, a new level of stillness. And that stillness is a dynamic, it's alive. It's not the absence of something, it's the inclusion of everything. Just as some Eastern teachers share, and the majority of the New Agers and the Western metaphysicians see I am as the completion, is the stillness. I am is equal to stillness. And stillness is a state of grace. When you evolve to stillness, no matter what the monkey mind is still doing, you can be in a state of stillness. And the monkey mind was, I thought I had to shut down that chatter. But I'm going to digress a little bit from stillness and say that I never understood why we're given this fine mind. It's our only tool in our tool bag, right? It's the only tool that I can use, Jnana yoga, which is, I'm a jnana yogi, and that's this knowledge to take information, to sort it, sift it, to knowledge. Continue to sort and sift, it becomes wisdom. This is my yogic path to enlightenment. This is what worked for me. So I thought, why am I supposed to discard the only tool that's going to take me to where I want to go? And that's what I thought, quieting the mind. It's almost like I conquer the mind, defeat the mind. And I thought, well, why are we given these fine minds only to have to overcome it? Why is this such an obstacle? Okay, so all the failure, but basically it was the failure to shut my mind up. And I was mixing up because the monkey mind is louder and it's more in the foreground, and it's harder until you learn to start ignoring it and putting it back as just nonsense, peripheral white noise, peripheral sounds. Just move it back. And then it leaves room for the mind to become in a state of stillness. So up to this point, it's inactivity. It's by giving up. It's by surrendering. It's by losing the questions. It's by losing the search. It's by losing the drive, the desire for anything, including enlightenment, awakening. You have to lose all those things. And you have to come in almost a passive state of just open acceptance. But then, in stillness, you're going to find, ironically, activity. You're going to be active in your stillness, because it's going to be a source of enhancement in not only your progression on your spiritual path, which is a never-ending process, by the way. You're going to be blessed with vision and information and more knowledge, more wisdom, I should say. So it's funny that stillness should require attentiveness. It should require, in addition to listening, it requires active. So all these things you're leading up to, and it kind of crescendos into giving it all up and just saying open acceptance and I know nothing, and then you're graced with awakening, and then you start to gain knowledge and you start to learn about what stillness, what silence really means, and what stillness is. The inclusion of everything is not the lack of anything. But the stillness allows you to be in a state of mind where you can be actively receptive. And pay attention to all this information, all this wisdom, this bombarding, and start to incorporate it into your self. And I'm talking about your higher self, your spiritual guides, your better self. I'm talking about all these things. So here we went. I always had a problem with this. I am, but I hated the pronoun I because I just thought it supported the ego. And then I got into this idea, like I mentioned, of small I and a big I, a small M for the little mind, the monkey mind, and a big M, because in the word in that pronoun I, there's usefulness, and in that noun mind, there's usefulness. Mindful. Remember, it's not mindlessness. I was always puzzled, I like it's like a haiku. And in my tradition, I was given not a haiku, but a koan. I mean, I was given a koan and puzzled with it, worked on it, and the Roshi would present in this formal, very formal environment. He would gift you with your koan, and you're supposed to solve it. Well, this is a trickster, because the trick is that it's not for the rational mind. If the opposite of rational mind is irrational, maybe that's closer. But it's about acceptance of, for me, it was about non-duality, that it's all one. That opposites not only are in the same sphere, but they're just different degrees of the same thing. Love is without hate. You can't have love. And love is just degrees of the degrees separated from hate. So the koan can't, in fact, the koan is for after enlightenment. I think they just give you just to make you suffer for a while, because nothing comes easy. And it's only when you give up and that you awaken that you can see that the koan, you can see it as a tool to demonstrate to you the limitation of your little M mind, of how ridiculous rational, how ridiculous the idea of reality. Again, with little r. Reality with a little r. There's a big reality, and we're all part of it. And we're all equal in it. We're all the same. So the idea that I means something unique, that's the little I. The capital I, the big I, is everything. All I am. I am that I am. Means that we can't be anything else than what we are in our awakened state. We can't be any more or any less than perfection, than completeness, than non-division, wholeness, oneness. And somewhere along the line, joy came into my mind as another, just as stillness opened up to a bigger thing, so too has joy. Joy is our God-given, Buddha-given, universe-given state of existence. We're given the opportunity. Joy is everywhere. Joy is everything. Joy is light. Joy is spirit. And we're all given the same tools. Or we're all given the, well, maybe not the same tools, but we're all given, there's 4 methods that I think of from the Hindu tradition. The 4 yogas. And I've talked about those many times. And one of those is suited for you. The yoga of energy. The Raja Yoga, the royal path. The active, the doer. Karma yoga, through your actions. Compassion, bhakti yoga. If you're compassionate, all you have to do is chant and praise and bingo, that's your path. And then jnana yoga, which they say is the most difficult, but I don't know, I didn't have a choice. Because I think maybe sometimes there's a combination of, maybe we can kind of combine them. Like bhakti, I mean like the Raja Yoga, Kriya. Some traditions they call it Kriya. It's about the energies, and that's pretty exciting to understand about the energies, and that by studying energies and studying the process and the wheels and the chakras and the energy flow, the chi as the Chinese say, the prana as the Hawaiians say, the breath of life. So there's a path for each and every one of us. So do I need to? I should go back and listen to how many eyes there are. There's the big eye, and then how many little eyes did I use? Because I'm still working on it. And especially sharing. I'm sharing with you. So could I say we're sharing with you? Would that be any better? Or they're sharing with you? Or whatever the newest pronoun is. And again, welcome. I love adding to the lexicon. I just saw that 10 or 12 words from the Korean language were added to the lexicon of the... Lexicon means the entire verbiage, the entire words of the English language. And each year they introduce some new words, and a lot of them came from Korea this time because of K-pop and all the, all that stuff that I'm watching a Korean sci-fi right now that I'm liking, even though I have to read subtitles, so that means putting on glasses and participate a little more in the mindless act of watching a TV program. But it's relaxing for me, just as I read my science fiction on my iPad at night, just to kind of get ready to sleep. I always have to wind down. I'm not one of those ones that just hit the pillow and boom, I'm gone. I have to wind down. Detox from the day. So all I'm trying to share with you today is that pronouns, the I pronoun, I saw that as inhibiting progress, while at the same time other people use it as the epitome, as the apex of their spiritual journey to get to the state of I am. Just as I talked about the state of stillness, to get the level of stillness, to get to the level of I am, to get to the level that you can understand what I am that I am even means. And maybe that's like a Western koan. It's the puzzle that you need to work your way through. Anyway, the adepts, the masters, the Buddhas left us as much guidance as they could, because essentially, the kernel of Buddhism, what Buddhism is, what spirituality is, what awakening is, can't be reduced to words. Anything that you can say is already a limitation on the unlimited. It's more like pointing the way. But there comes a point, there comes a time when it's your turn to just kick back, just be, and live, be a living example of the Dharma. This is the real transmission of the Dharma. The Dharma just means the teachings. The teachings can only truly, in their wholeness, be transmitted by someone's behavior, someone's equanimity, someone's grasp on the illusory nature, still doing what they have to do to survive in this world, but grasping and understanding, but live the Dharma. That's the challenge, is to live your life in such a way that even people walking casually by you will kind of look and say, wow, there's a different feeling. There's a different vibe coming from that guy. If they notice, chances are we're anonymous and we just can walk around and nobody will care. Being a foreigner here, being a white guy here, I do attract a little more attention just by the simple fact of being white, and people are curious about me. So maybe I get a little more attention than I would be if I was Taiwanese, walking around in the... But very seldom will someone here be able to even recognize, much less articulate, that there was some special animating from somebody else, that they made them smile or they made their load seem a little easier. And that's okay. We don't need recognition. But this is our contribution by how we live our life. Not what we say, not even what we do. Just, I am. And that's my understanding. That's when I get it. This I amness is living the Dharma. This I amness is what the only tool, the only thing that we can contribute, those of us that have woken up, contribute to a better society for all.